Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Two Guys and a Fern. Sorry, the Whitefield Runners Podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about preparing for your first 10K.
0, 1. Let's get started.
This episode will probably help you if you're, looking to go from 0 to 10K in a matter of 4 weeks, which is ambitious, but, can be done. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, Nitin, how's your week been?
Since we met last time, I've had a couple of good training sessions. As you're aware, apart from running, I'm also training for my triathlon coming up later this year.
Right.
So I'm just beginning on my biking journey. So I did a good 60 kilometer.
You went all the way to the airport and came back?
A little beyond the airport and came
back.
Oh,
beyond the airport. Okay, great. So you went to Hyderabad and came back.
That was good. So I had another triathlete in my society. So
Okay.
It's always good to have buddies when you're cycling, right?
Right.
For multiple reasons.
Yeah,
So we had
especially
that.
in Bangalore.
That was good. Running was like, okay, I think like 3 or 4 pretty easy runs.
Okay. Yeah, and swimming also, right? Triathlon.
Swimming also, yeah.
Yeah, you got that?
I got a 2,000 meter swim in. So
Nice.
how about you? I know your half marathon is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, next week. This weekend. So just 3 to 4 days away. And I feel underprepared as usual. Because ideally what you want to be doing is getting in a lot of these longer runs, 15, 18, in that range.
Right.
Maybe like every Sunday do that. But somehow, the weather is such in Bangalore right now, it's super hot. So by the time I'm done 8 to 9K, I feel really as though I'm, like I'm getting boiled or something. So it makes it difficult to actually complete a longer distance. So my training has not been that great.
Okay.
But
you still have 9 half marathons in this year. So
yeah, exactly. So enough, half marathons to actually improve performance a little bit, and hopefully I'll get there. Yeah, but if I do 2.5, I think I'll still be happy.
Yeah.
With this one. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Should we dive right into our topic for today?
Let's completely do that. So, what would you say to somebody who wants to do their first 10K, having not run much in the last 2 months? And maybe even like, what's your own journey like? Probably that's the biggest source of experience, like learnings, I suppose. Yeah,
totally. I think like my journey is the perfect example of what not to do for your first.
What not to do? Okay.
What not to do for your first 10K. So if you know what not to do, then what to do becomes easier.
Okay.
So I think the experience of my first 10K goes back like 8-9 years to 2016, if I'm not wrong, when I was working in Gurgaon, and a couple of enthusiastic colleagues and friends asked me to sign up for a 10K.
Okay.
And I just signed up and showed up on race day.
Okay.
So nothing, like
no
zero
preparation.
prep before and 0 runs after. So it was just do the 10K on the race day.
Yeah.
And it was one of the worst decisions of my.
Yeah. And you crushed it, didn't you? Like 45 minutes, 10K.
45 minutes for 5K. I took like 90 minutes.
Yeah, so did not crush it.
It was almost like they were taking the banners off and like the hydration stations they were taking off. They were like waiting for me to finish so that they can pack off and go home. It was almost like that. So that is exactly what you should not be doing for your first 10K for multiple reasons, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't train, you're going to feel miserable during the run. Miserable not mentally because you're slow. That is fine. You're still slow. I'm still slow. You're going to feel miserable physically because you've not put your body through that at all.
Right.
Like you've not done a 1K, 2K, 3K in your life and you're directly running a 10K.
Trying to do a 10K.
It's going to screw your body over
a
lot.
Yeah.
And even after the run, right, you're going to feel very bad for the next 2 days. So I remember just coming back home and just literally like lying down on my bed like still for a couple of days.
No more runs.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So I was not able to move. It was that bad. So
yeah.
Definitely something that we should not be doing. We'll talk about like what is a more ideal way to sort of prepare for your 10K.
Yeah.
I know if you have TCS 10K as your first 10K event and you've not started training yet, today is probably the time you should start. Like 4 or 5 weeks. We can talk about what our listeners can do in 4 or 5 weeks to crush their first 10K. But I think you spoke about your first 10K experience in our first episode.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to elaborate a little bit more?
So my first 10K was actually in my backyard, or not backyard, but in a school ground close to my home, where they would just let me train because there was no school, it was lockdown. So I was just running, and I would do these 3, 4, 5 Ks on a regular basis, and I was comfortable with that distance. But it came to a point
You
where
spoke about pi runs, right?
pi runs 3.14 and so on. And I was, I had built a little bit of an aerobic base. So my body wasn't completely surprised that running is a thing. So mentally also I was comfortable with that. But then I had to complete 10 kilometers on October 31st, to actually complete my target distance of 100.
Yeah.
And as I was running, around kilometer 5 or kilometer 6, I really felt like this was it. I didn't think I could go on because, and it was a small, like 150 or 200-meter track.
And you're not done more than 5-6 kilometers before?
No. I think 5 itself was the max, and that I would have done rarely. So at that point, like running around a small like a small loop, completing 10 Ks on a small loop is very difficult mentally because there's no variety, and you're just running around and around. So mentally, that's kind of taxing, and you don't realize how much of a difference that makes. But the thing is, it just started to rain suddenly, and not rain like a little drizzle. It just poured. The heavens opened up, and it was super wet. So got drenched completely, and there was water inside my shoes, so I could feel the sloshing, etc. But the good thing is that it acted as like a change. Yeah. It also was a coolant, so water was helping me cool off and wash some of the sweat off, and just was a bit refreshing, I would say. So this was my hydration station. So that helped me just to continue, and that's how I completed my first 10K. And the feeling I had at the end of that,
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
What was the feeling? Yeah.
It was amazing. I did something that I felt I could not do. That obstacle, you just break it down. And I did my 100K for the month. And yeah, I was really happy with that.
Yeah.
And having done that, I think mentally also I felt like, okay, 10K is now done. So 8K shouldn't be difficult. So then I started to increase my training distance after that. So I think that also was a factor, that you attack a target which you think is impossible, and after that things just look easy.
Right. Right.
Philosophy for life.
So looks like both of us had different experiences, but not the most ideal experience.
Yeah, neither of these is ideal.
Either of these is ideal. So maybe we can help our listeners in terms of what could be an ideal 5-week prep for their first.
I think we can cover some of the training modes, right? I think I am familiar with something known as interval runs, or goal pace runs. We'll talk about that. What else is there?
I would say, like, maybe for 10K training, there are basically just 3 types of workouts that we should be focusing on. Easy runs, intervals like you spoke about, and tempo runs.
Okay.
I hate tempos. We'll come to that. Just
right. I've never done a tempo.
You've never done a tempo. Maybe going into detail about each of these 3, right? So should we take an example of a goal pace? So if someone wants to do a 10K in, say, 70 minutes as an example, just so that it's easier to illustrate the difference.
Is 70 good, bad, normal?
It varies from person to person, man. So I would have been very happy with a 70 maybe 2 years ago.
Right. But
maybe
now,
not anymore. Someone who's already doing a 40-minute 10K would be not happy with the 70.
Yeah, of course.
So I think it's very subjective, and we spoke about it last episode as well, that establish your benchmark and then try to beat that. Yeah. So let's assume that someone's doing their first 10K and
75 minutes.
75 minutes. 75 minutes. 7 minutes 30 seconds per kilometer is your goal pace, right? Easy runs are runs where you feel very comfortable while doing the run, to the extent that you're able to hold a conversation comfortably with a fellow runner. So you're not breathless. You're able to converse without you sounding like gibberish, and how we're speaking right now. You should be able to speak. That is like a benchmark for an easy run.
Okay.
And that roughly translates to about a minute or a minute and a half slower than your goal pace per kilometer. So if 7:30 is your goal pace, then 8:30 to 9 could be your easy pace.
Right. So you're taking 80 to 85 minutes to complete the 10K.
Yes, if you do a 10K, but during training you're not going to do a 10K.
You're not going to do a 10K.
You're probably going to do a 5K or 3K if you're starting off, 3 to 5K, 3 to 6K. But the most important thing is to maintain that conversational ability, and if you have a smartwatch and you can track your heart rate, ensure that your heart rate is anywhere between 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate.
Okay, so max heart rate, I guess, is something like 220 minus your age, right? That's one thumb rule
That's
that they
one
use.
thumb rule. Yeah, so it could be in the range of 190.
Yeah. As I'm 20 years old, 220 minus 20, it's 200.
Yeah,
So
very funny, very funny. Yeah, assuming it's 190 or like 200, right? So
yeah.
easy runs could be in the heart rate zone of 130 to 140. That is
Okay.
very briefly about easy
So
runs.
what percentage should it be? 65,
60 to 70%.
60 to 70%. Okay.
60 to 70%.
Okay.
I'll come back to easy runs, but just to close the thought on the other types of runs, you
Yeah.
mentioned about intervals, right? So
Yeah.
intervals are basically, as the name suggests, you run for an interval of time and then take a recovery walk or
Yeah.
like a slow jog.
Right.
There are very good multiple types of intervals. For 10K runs, 400 meters, 800 meters are like great workouts.
Okay, so it's like 400 meters of running at a good pace. What you're aiming for?
Good pace is probably what you're aiming for, or slightly faster.
Slightly
If
faster.
you're aiming for 7:30,
yeah,
it should be 6:45 to 7. But just for that 400 meters.
Just for 400 meters, you run at 7, which is slightly faster than your target, and then you recover for
100 meters.
100 meters or a minute.
A minute or
yeah, anything. It could be anything, but I guess the funda of this whole thing is to follow the schedule somewhat rigorously, as in don't stop before 400 meters and maintain that pace for 400 meters
and repeat that for 4, 5 times or 6 times. So when I started off intervals, I would crush my interval timing for the first 400 meters and then like taper off afterwards. I think the main benefit of intervals would come if you're able to sustain that pace for the entire 5 or 8 intervals that you do.
Yeah, this is currently my favorite form of working out. I do 900 followed by 100. So 900 meters at a pace of around 5.5, followed by a minute or 90 seconds of recovery. And yeah, you're right. By the time I do this for the 5th time, or even the 4th time, I'm already feeling that I may not be able to do it. But I just do it anyway. Just do it. Even if I'm not 100% able to do the speed part of it, don't stop before the your desired distance, at least. And in fact, I've created this for my upcoming half marathon. We'll talk about that as well, where I'm going to treat these marathons as training exercise.
A part of your training.
Yeah, exactly. I don't take it as a special event, but rather just a training day for me. So that helps to keep some of the anxiety about timing and all of that aside. Just treat it as a training event. My 12th half marathon will be the one.
Will be actual 100% effort.
Yes. Everything until then is just a training exercise. So that way I don't have much more anxiety already. I mean,
that's a good way to see it. Intervals as a part of your actual race itself.
Yeah.
The people generally, people who sign up for races like once or twice a year, they give 100% effort. But we do races every month, so like everything cannot be race-based effort. So that makes sense. On the topic of intervals, one thing that I've started doing right now, pretty recently, is a slight variation of intervals called pyramid intervals.
Okay.
So where you don't do the same 400-meter repeats. You do the first interval is 200 meters, then 400, 800, 1.2, and then 800, 400, and 200. The difference is that the smaller distance intervals are at a much faster pace.
Okay.
So you'll do the 200 meter at say a 4 minutes per kilometer pace, and then 400 meters at say 4:30, 800 meters at slower, and so on.
Right.
I found that to be like a good gamification element into your run. So you just follow that in your watch or whatever, and you're done with 5-6 kilometers just following this instead of like just going with the
I think that is that's so interesting, because I told you the same thing, that running around a small 200-meter track, if you have to do a 1K, it's like 5 laps, and 10K is 5 into 10. So 50 laps.
Who does 200-meter laps? I hope you're not doing that.
No, I'm not. But the point I'm trying to bring out is there is a mental aspect to this.
It can become monotonous if you're doing the.
Yeah, it's more challenging. Running on a treadmill, I feel that I can't do even 1.5 kilometers, because it just gets so boring and there is no change. And even around our office right now, we have a jogging track. I mean, famously, this office has everything, including an upcoming bowling alley, apparently. But the track around this place is, I think, 700 meters or something like that, 750. Huge. So even a 5K is actually challenging, because it just feels like you're doing. It's just tedium. This is the definition of tedium. On the other hand, when you're going to say Goa and you find this long beach where you can do 5K uninterrupted without having to turn back, it just feels easier. I think there's a strong mental element to this as well. Yeah.
I did a Chennai half marathon, right? I think a couple of years ago. It's not even a 10K forward and 10K back or a loop. It was just 21 kilometers straight, and then you come back by bus or something.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like entire 21 kilometers is like
No
fully
repeating
new.
sections.
Nothing, not even like a repeating loop or something. So
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Was it? Did you feel that is easier?
I feel that definitely having different variety definitely helps.
Yeah, and I brought that up in your interval because now you're covering 6 kilometers, but you don't realize it because you have other different things to look
Exactly.
forward to.
Yes,
So yeah, that's interesting. So we've covered interval, we've covered
Easy
long
runs.
easy runs
easy
or
runs.
easy runs.
Yeah, and the
What
last
else
one is tempos, which I still don't like them. But
you don't like them, yeah.
they're supposed to be effective. So tempos are basically, as the name suggests, to maintain a standard tempo throughout your run or like for a long period of that, but at a pace that is slightly challenging, but not your race pace. So if your race pace, in our example, if it's 7:30,
Yeah.
you do your tempo at say 7:45 per kilometer, but you do that for 3 kilometers on the trot or like 5 kilometers on the trot without taking walking breaks.
Okay.
It doesn't suit my style of running right now because I'm not yet there in a place where I can run continuously. I'm still, taking walking breaks in between.
Right.
So I find tempos to be more challenging than.
So if you have to go, if you're doing this for a 10K, does that mean you have to run like 10K without stopping? Or like what exactly? Is it 4K without stopping?
Yeah, I mean, see, like we don't do it that way, but generally people who sign up for races, right? They don't take walking breaks. So they sign up for a 10K and they have a goal pace of say 50 minutes. It is basically 5 minutes per kilometer for each of the 10 kilometers. And it's not even like 4:30 pace for 800 meters and 200 meters of walking. It's basically setting a pace
and then just go
and just like cruise to the finish line.
Right.
That is like nirvana or like where we want to be.
Yeah.
We are not yet there.
I'm definitely not.
We are not yet there, right?
Yeah.
So tempos help build that endurance and like to be able to sustain a relatively hard effort over a long period of time, like even marathon distance.
Okay.
So those help build your aerobic base.
Yeah. Okay. So we've covered the 3 training formats. Tell us about how to do this, how to schedule it, how much should I be doing, how much, how many long runs or easy runs, how many tempos if I'm doing it at all, how many intervals, how should I structure that part?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when you're starting off, you'll have to do at least 3 workouts per week. If you're doing 3 workouts per week, these are the 3 workouts, right?
You do one of each?
One interval, one easy, and one tempo.
Okay.
If you have the bandwidth to do 4, the 4th one has to be an easy one. You don't want to be repeating, 2 consecutive days of intervals or tempos because those are slightly more taxing and need a little bit of recovery time.
Okay.
Your body needs to recover from those.
Okay.
Easy runs are designed in such a way that you don't need recovery. In fact, the run itself is for a recovery, right? So if you're able to stack up like 4 or 5 days of workout a week, you'll probably do one interval, one tempo, and everything else is going to be easy runs. Like long runs. And if you're ramping up over a period of 5 weeks, people talk about the 10% rule, right? So if you're doing 10 kilometers of mileage this week, all your 3 workouts combined, you're doing 10 kilometers. Don't do more than 11 or 12 next week, and so on.
Okay.
So that works for both weekly mileage as well as your long run distance. So if the longest you've ever run is say 5 kilometers, don't go from 5 to 10 in your first 10K, right? So like train your body to be comfortable with 6K, 7K.
Yeah, just build up to it in steps.
So I would say if you have 5 weeks, your longest run should be 5 kilometers in the first week, 6, 7, 8. You don't need to do a 10K before your actual event. So the longest you can ever run could be say 7 or 8K before the event, and then you can still do the 10K.
Okay, that seems like an actionable plan. Yeah, actionability is the name of the game.
Okay, Vinuth, you tell me about. I spoke a lot about the training part. Tell me about the race day vibes. What's so good about race day? What have been your experiences? Do you face anxiety the night before? Tell me through your entire thought.
No, race day anxiety is a real thing. Race night anxiety, I would say, previous night, because what typically happens is that you these races begin at 5:30, 4:30, whatever a.m., and you need to travel a little bit. So all in all, you need to be awake by around 3 a.m. And so there are multiple things that cause anxiety the previous night. One, you're not falling asleep in time. I don't sleep before 12 a.m. anyway. So suddenly, if I expect myself to go and sleep at 9 and get a nice 6 hours of sleep, that never happens. Literally 0 times it has happened. I can't even sleep. 3 to 4 hours of sleep is probably the best that I can expect. So that's one thing. In fact, the fact that I'm not falling asleep causes more anxiety.
More anxiety, right?
And that causes more
Why
lack
am I
of
not
sleep.
falling asleep?
Yeah.
Will I,
Will I wake up tomorrow?
Yeah.
I feel that I'm very afraid that one day I will just decide that I'm not going for this race and I'll just give up, or like not just throw the phone away, turn off the alarms, and just continue to sleep. It hasn't yet happened, luckily, but it could happen. So that causes anxiety. But once you're there, once you've convinced yourself that okay, we're going to do this, let's go there, then things are a little different because the race day vibe is just amazing. Once you get to the venue and you have hundreds or thousands of runners
Thousands,
with
right?
you.
TCS would probably be 15,000. I don't know. I'm just taking numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That vibe, everybody is there with enthusiasm, energy, adrenaline. All of that rubs off on you. Some of these have Zumba, etc. in the morning to get you going. So there's music as well. So there's a different energy on the day, and you feel that as well. So this is one of the things that maybe it'll keep you coming back for the next run as well. So that race day vibe is something special as well.
I will just add that as part of that race day vibe,
Yeah.
it's also hugely inspirational to see
Yes.
who you're running alongside.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we've spoken about this, but for some of these marquee events, not your neighborhood park runs, but some of these marquee events, you see 75-year-old guys, or like in some cases like 60-plus-year-old ladies, who are probably doing a half marathon at a pace faster than maybe our current 10K personal best. Right? So that is hugely inspirational. I wouldn't say it's like demotivating. I would say it's like hugely inspirational. And
no, it can be demotivating.
It can be. That's why I like proactively told that
no, for me it's demotivating. I see somebody who is like 30 years or double my age and crushing it totally, whereas here I am just barely able to move. So
you mentioned barely, and I'm reminded of Barefoot Bobby, and we should probably talk about him or like feature him in our podcast at some time. So Barefoot Bobby is a local legend.
Mr. Barefoot, if you're listening to this, we welcome you to our podcast.
Yes. We'll reach out for sure. So this man, Barefoot Bobby, he's 58 years old, if I'm not wrong, 58, 59. He runs barefoot.
Yeah.
He does marathons at like 5 minutes per kilometer pace, 10Ks at 4:10, 4:20 pace, like 10Ks in like 41, 42 minutes.
That's amazing.
And he has a heart rate of, our easy runs.
Right.
Like, when we run at 9 minutes per kilometer, like 130, 140, he crushes those at like, that heart rate. So which is why I'm saying it's hugely inspirational and motivational, because, Rome was not built in a day, and he's been like probably working out for like decades or like at least a decade. So, it sort of like keeps us going that, if we are consistent and, we put in our efforts, follow a structured training plan, we can get there. And like,
I think that's also there is a lot to improve. Just knowing that we are nowhere near our current peak should keep you going, thinking that, hey, there's more. This is not my best. I can probably do even better. So that should also act as an inspiration.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find amazing or very interesting about race days is this whole concept of the crowd cheering you on. So, you have the run is happening in say Bangalore. You have the locals just coming and cheering you on. Hydration stations are there, but these are just general people who live in the neighborhood who really have no reason to wake up and be there on that day. They are not running. They're just here to cheer you on. I find that to be a very like a very giving. They're giving their energy and transmitting it to you. So I find that to be these people to be. I don't know what to say. They're like saints, I guess. People come there, parents come with their kids. They set up a boom box and picnic, and they're just cheering you on. That kind of vibe is just something that I find amazing. Yeah. And I think in like the Mumbai Marathon,
Oh, yeah. The
that
Mumbai
has some of the
Marathon.
best crowd support from
It
what I heard.
totally does. The spirit of Mumbai was in full display. So I did the full marathon this year, right?
Right.
And there were obviously many spots dedicated for crowd support, and you would feel ashamed to walk at that time, with so many
Okay.
people shouting on the top of their voices. You would
Yeah.
feel like, so many people are there supporting you.
Yeah.
You're probably doing themselves and like yourself a disservice by like walking now.
Walking. Yeah.
Why don't you push harder, etc. So that adds a huge
Yeah.
element into it, and it's like completely fascinating.
Yeah. I saw a video. Okay. This guy, he's standing somewhere on, like, he's part of the crowd support for some run somewhere. This is not even in India, I think. So he's, you can see that he is not wearing a shirt, and it apparently looks like he is not wearing pants also. He just has a sign around his midriff that says, "Better run or I'm going to drop this sign."
Yeah.
That would definitely motivate me to keep going. So yeah. But these are just the crowd support is something great, and you find the spirit of all these cities coming through in these events. So that's something amazing too.
I think on that note, maybe just a last note before we wrap up this episode is that, if you've not signed up for TCS 10K, definitely find a good marquee race in your neighborhood or in your city. Don't sign up for like a neighborhood park run or local event, because that's not going to be a great experience. Like all of the factors that Vinuth and I just spoke about in terms of crowd support, in terms of arrangements, hydration, all of that, there's like a huge difference between marquee events done by good organizers versus your neighborhood charity run. So choose your event wisely. Obviously do your research, and then follow the different types of training that we spoke about today, and you should crush your first 10K.
Yeah, and you get a medal at the end. So what more do you need? A medal is everything.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay, listeners, we are at the end of episode 2. Hopefully you've listened, and hopefully you've picked up some interesting tips for your next 10K. If you're starting out, you still have a few weeks before the TCS 10K. So keep your practice up, and if you're Mr. Barefoot Bobby, the invitation still stands. You can still join us.
Yes, and please do keep the feedback coming. I think we had some really overwhelming feedback for our episode 1, which keeps us going.
Thank you.
Turn this upside down.